Well, well, well. Here we are again. Hey, everybody. It's been a while, right? I know. Sheesh. Has life been crazy lately, or what? So, it's been some time, and been thinking about some new stuff and having some new feelings. So here we are. First things first, I would love, love, love for us to introduce ourselves to one another. I've had the pleasure of getting to speak with some of you in messages, and you guys are just incredible people. So I'd really like it if you could take a moment to pause the video and introduce yourself in the comment section. Maybe write a pearl of wisdom from late that has been kind of helpful for you, and maybe a question of something like kind of where you're at or what you're trying to figure out right now. So yeah, please pause the video and write that out for yourself or reply to someone else. I really think having us to communicate with each other personally, I don't know. It just is. It's just a nice camaraderie to feel that I'd like to share. Anyway, there's a lot I feel like is important to talk about today, and it's a little heavier than usual, really. So I'll just cut to the chase. It seems like the future is upon us. Like here in the year 2015 or 2016, it sounds like the future. And I get this really deep feeling that we're sort of already on this track of events that are playing out in a way that's essentially unavoidable. And in reflection to what's going on around us, we can kind of find like individual purpose or individual meaning within this sort of like chaotic mess that's going on around us. I don't know about you guys, but my life lately has been very specific in showing me maybe things like self-doubt. Self-doubt has been shown to me to just be kind of my own problem. And every time I just ignore self-doubt and don't think about it, everything ends up going a little bit better. I think people like us who are kind of thinking far out, we can sometimes be marginalized, and we can end up feeling like, well, I don't know if any of this is true or not, so we're always like doubting ourselves or doubting, talking about this kind of stuff, this kind of subject matter. And that's just a bunch of like hoo-ha. It's really, it's one thing to be courteous to other people, like our friends and family who just don't want to talk about this stuff. It's good to be courteous towards people, but there's also like self-respect. I'm not going to continuously, deny my kind of internal psychology or the way I view the world, the way I view spirituality, because it makes someone else uncomfortable. That's really not fair to me. So that's something lately that I just think is really important to say right off the bat. Because ultimately, and I've gotten so used to giving myself disclaimers, it's kind of ridiculous. But it's just having free thought and being able to consider, extraterrestrial diplomats or, predatory spiritual forces, questioning religions. The list goes on and on. That's like a genuine person who's open-minded, who's not being lured down a narrow hallway, which leads to a dead end, which is what society, I feel like, likes to do with us. I've been feeling a little like aggressive lately about just like wanting to just scream and be like, let us be free. just like things like watching TV commercials, and it just is like a reminder of like, ugh, what is done to people on a regular basis. Like we're smacked across the face 30 seconds at a time of to buy this or to be that, and we're not it's supposed to like go past our filters because it hits us so fast, and it's like a flashing bright screen in our faces all the time. And well, anyway, it seems there's an onslaught of these kinds of social influences more than ever. And I get this feeling like it's been sort of business as usual for a while. And that makes me feel like the grander scheme is preparing to make some kind of a shift or a transition into we could call it a new order, if you will. And there's those of us who are looking at this future, these upcoming events, and we're reading between the lines. We've been reading between the lines this whole time, listening to all these different spiritual speakers, reading different channeled messages, considering, the Anunnaki may not be what they claim to be in Sumerian texts. They could be a race of extraterrestrials that showed up 300 years ago and have been time traveling to warp humanity's history so that we would worship this race as gods. I think it's important to consider the world that way, consider these different forces that way. We're made to doubt ourselves, we're made to question ourselves, because if you have rationality to this degree, if you're open enough to consider, just how deep the kind of grander scheme goes, that's not very useful for, quote, the powers that be, who have an upcoming series of events that, just like TV commercials, it would be better if we just took them in without questioning anything. So, the Catholic Church saying, let's welcome our brothers and sisters, that's implying a lot. That's implying such a closeness that has yet to be necessarily earned. I don't want to be like discriminate. It's just I've seen us humans being pushed around a lot, and I see like PR campaigns that like to subtly point the finger at you and make you feel like you're the problem. But really what is kind of the problem is that people have been being abducted against their will for, at least 50 or more years now, or even before that, with, different labels for ETs as fairies or elves, and, this has been going on for a long time, so I think we should be suspicious of these different forces that have yet to reveal themselves. And then will sort of present themselves just coincidentally at a great juncture of change, while we're sort of vulnerable considering like new ways of living and new approaches towards social dilemmas. It's just very convenient to all of a sudden have ET show up. And that seems like this has been part of the plan for a long time now. And of course it would be just so easy, right? They show up and they're like, hey, we're going to fix all your problems. We're going to give you the new technology. We've been your brothers and sisters all this time, and now you're ready for us to help you. That's sort of like taking this position of authority without really asking permission. That's also not really being straight up about, well, where have you guys been all this time, and have you been taking advantage of humanity as a resource? In which it really appears 99% of any sort of alien forces that have engaged with our planet, whether it be channeling, whether it be actual contact, it's been for it's been for them. It hasn't been for us. They have the advantage. It's for their self-advantage that they come here. You know, they need some rich genetics to. They're probably an ancient race. And if they need to come off like they're God, you know, that shows a level of insecurity in a way, really. If you can't be straight up, then you're performing from a place of desperation. You're coming from a place of, you're going to do whatever it takes. You're going to say whatever you need to say. So I could see this, you know, beautiful reveal of, you know, Pleiadian representatives in the UN. And really, though, it's just Empire version 2. We've been working with military behind the scenes and government behind the scenes all this time, sort of taking a little off the top for ourselves. And now it's like, oh boy, we're going to solve all your problems and everything's okay. You know, talk about how passively most people will just run for that with open arms. And I think that's exactly the intention. We're just, you know, we're so used to struggling. We're so used to just trying to, you know, doubting ourselves, questioning everything. When push comes to shove and things are happening around us, people like you and I are, it's going to be time for us to really speak up and to let these perspectives be known. And the kind of beauty of it is I think these perspectives have been intentional the whole time. That's the kind of beauty of this full circle experience. I'm sure this has happened before. When a race is just about ready to kind of come into their own, sort of a few races have been intermingling like just beforehand so that they could approach us saying like, oh, well, here we have hybrid races that are part you and part me. Of course we need to bond. Of course we need to form a galactic alliance. Of course we need to join the same empire, the larger empire. You know, welcome to the Federation. So where I'm really coming from is that we need to maintain our individual rights. We need to say, hey, we never gave you permission. You've taken this from us, and you know you're hostile. And we are our own planet, and we've had self-management issues because we've been learning, we've been growing, we've been evolving. But that doesn't make it okay. If there's just a handful of individuals on the planet that are saying this is not okay, that is valid. So I think as the future unfolds, it's like we are more important than we give ourselves credit. It's not an ego thing. It's evolution has been working with the earth all this time through all of these different histories, all these different archetypes of different social forms. And it's all been, we've been learning, we've been looking in the past and smacking our foreheads like, oh yeah, you know, slavery, no good. Dictatorships, no good. The drive for world domination never ends well. These seem like we've spoken about this before, these core elements of, you know, archetypal universal experiences that consciousness has to go through and learn from so that we just kind of knock it off. And one of these is probably ETs showing up, you know, the greater community arriving. And the way we navigate into this next era is important. And if there's just a few of us, you know, we need to be vocal. We need to put those perspectives out there. Because it's not okay to be taken off your planet. It's not okay. You can feel it in your heart. So, the way I think it's a good way to look and see the future is a thanks but no thanks approach. Always reading between the lines. Like, oh, okay, you know, you want us to join the bigger empire. But that bigger empire is just the same set of issues as we've already been dealing with for a long time. And we don't like it, so we're going to say no. And that's, that self-respect to say no, that self-respect to insist on individual freedom. We've been being set up for millennia of time to be a spiritual follower, to take spiritual handouts, to look for Big Daddy to do it for us, to kind of deny, the feminine sort of, to deny the feminine in a way is to sort of deny this like beautiful aspect of humanity, this beautiful, self-reproduction, or sort of like, it's just been part of this campaign to kind of make us followers, make us doubt ourselves, make us ready to like reach out and take whatever is offered. And that, for me, and for many of us, I'm sure, has been this huge red flag of, oh, that's something you should watch out for when a religion is so drastic to threaten hellfire on you. That's a red flag. That's no longer spiritual. That's like social, because you're pushing somebody according to like an ideal. I know I sound a little more upset than usual. I'm still happy-go-lucky these days. I have this feeling though of like, it's important to be kind of tough right now. It's important to stand up for ourselves and to take this seriously. And our world needs us. I feel like humanity's been growing and we've been developing. And the few of us who can read between the lines, who can consider extraterrestrial diplomacy, who can consider, okay, once we get through this physical local empire, there's this whole spiritual realm beyond that that's also vying for our attention and our acceptance. So there's a really great article, I'll post it, and of course I don't know what to believe or what not to believe, but the quality of the information and the quality of the thought is great, and it's one of the things that inspired me to sit down and go for it again today. And it's sort of stating like, we're getting ready to join this greater community, and the greater community right around Earth and this part of the galaxy is very competitive. Resources are very sought after, which is one of the reasons why these different races just couldn't help themselves but to come to our Earth and to, there's very rich resources. There's very rich exotic resources, energetic resources through humanity. This is like organic. This is natural. As it's stated in that article, many of these races must rely on technology for survival. So to see this planet that's completely natural, completely biological, it's like this sort of reminder from nature, or it's like it gives them a chance to sort of stick it to nature. They're like, oh, this is so pure and so natural. I've got all this built up resentment as this race that's been just trying to make ends meet with our technology and our dwindling resources. I'm just going to use this as an opportunity to critique nature, to totally take advantage of nature, because I've been put in this position, and that's what I'm going to do, Basically, screw you guys. So, and the reason I mention that is that even you get to a perspective where you understand why E.T. is doing what E.T. is doing. I've even heard this concept that from a higher level, our spirits allowed the abductions to take place because the Greys are sort of in need. These different ET races are on their way out. They do have dwindling resources. They are relying on these super technologies, which is a weakness, not an advantage, when you think about it deep enough. And ultimately, we're in a position of authority. We're in a position to say thanks but no thanks. And we should have the strength and the self-respect to insist on that. And that's where maybe this voice of seriousness is coming from. It's not anger, it's not anything but just like this really strong feeling of self-respect. And you all deserve that. We all deserve that. We're not thinking about this stuff because we want to be crazy, as is an easy thought for many people. We're thinking about this kind of stuff because we're naturally drawn to it. It like feeds our spirits. It makes us feel like, like centered. When we're just like living day to day according to the whims and fancies of, social, commercial, capitalist lifestyles, or communist lifestyles for that matter, whatever. It's not about you. It's about the influence. It's about the society getting from you what it wants. And you feel like you get what you want because you've got a new car and you've got a really fun sports game to watch. So, and that's part of it too. That's all well and good too, because it's important for maybe a spirit to like look back on themselves and be like, shit, that I really was in deep. I got to be more on top of things in the future. That's just what some of us need. That's probably exactly what some of us need. So, I also want to dispel any fears, because I'm sure on the surface it could get to that point where things are looking really scary. But just try to remember that this is what the universe needs. Don't judge the book by its cover. Whatever is occurring is what is occurring. That's what is needed. And we want to pass judgment on it. We want to, I'm passing hella judgment on a lot. But ultimately, that's the domino effect that was set in motion since the beginning of the universe. And to sort of get angry about it is like getting angry at the water for being wet. That's just how it played out. That's how it is. That's where we're at. And that's fine. That is okay. Because when you can be in this place and feel that and read between the lines of it, you can both have the self-respect and have the understanding. And that gives you permission to basically step to the side and say, thanks but no thanks. So, yeah, you deserve to feel good about yourself. We deserve to feel good about ourselves. Damn it. So, that's kind of this big thing for me lately, is just sort of in these considerations of the future, sort of ending up finding that inner strength. Like that was kind of the big thing for this newest update. Because really, there's nothing else to really talk about that hasn't already been touched on, I feel. Which is why I want you guys to get in on this discussion. If you haven't yet, please introduce yourself and, give us a little pearl of wisdom that you've come across in your life, that life has brought to you lately, reminded you of. Or ask a question. We have those questions like, nobody's yet to talk about this or to address this or that. So I'd like to keep that. I'd like to make this community grow. And we're all friends. Something else that's kind of maybe worth going this next half. I think we're like at halftime right now. That's a sports term after I just criticized sports. That's kind of perfect. Anyway, I think something that I really wanted to talk about is this idea of Reality versus illusion. You know, that's like a taboo subject for some of these speakers. It's like if you start going down that road, it sort of like flips their whole spiel over. So it's kind of interesting when somebody starts to question the reincarnation processes as being hijacked by archons, and then the guy giving the interview gets quiet because he was just about to go off about how beautiful reincarnation was. It is like this hairy subject. How do you determine from a subjective position but behind physical eyes what is real versus what isn't real? And it's kind of a trick question from the get-go, because how could you ever prove or tell in the first place? So I ultimately get this feeling that, whether something's real or unreal it's actually way more besides the point than a lot of other things. It's like if you're there and you're in the moment and you're experiencing it, be your best person. If it's in the middle of a dream, or you're in the middle of like Sunday brunch, or you're in a virtual video game world, kind of doesn't matter, because you're going to feel the same kind of pain if you step on somebody's toes or you do something wrong. You're going to feel like, oh, you want to fix a mistake. So that feels real without a doubt. Like the personal response, the personal balance and engagement with the moment. How real or less real the moment is doesn't change the personal relationship with that moment. How are we acting? What buttons are being pushed on us, and what are we expressing, kind of like a reaction rather than a considered response. I think that's ends up being the sort of like more important subject when you start talking about, what's real versus what is illusion. Is, do we respond without thinking to reality, or do we read between the lines and act thoughtfully? So however real or unreal the reality is, I think, is besides the point. Because here's the thing. Let's say this is the worst case scenario. Let's say this is completely synthetic light, modeled after organic light. And then maybe even organic light was this like offshoot of like a bad idea that just got ran with, Let's say that all the suns in the sky are just big projectors of the illusion for like some evil demiurge who's got some crazy virtual reality machine. Let's say that this is the worst case scenario that it could possibly be. And ultimately, if that is the case, then more than ever it's important to consider how to be a strong spirit, a strong individual in the face of all of those influences. Then you'd really need to be on your A game. Then you would really need to dissect the world around you, read between the lines, and be thoughtful. It would be really important to pass those genes along, that kind of thoughtfulness. Maybe that's exactly what Earth has been trying to cultivate all this time, is that kind of thoughtfulness. So that for humans in the future, when we're put in these scenarios again, these kinds of back and forths again, we sort of know what to look out for, don't we?